The first time my father said, "You are not my daughter anymore," I was standing barefoot on the driveway. It was raining. Not dramatic rain, just steady, cold, the kind that soaks through your hoodie before you realize it. My mother was behind him, arms folded. She didn't look angry, she looked relieved. I was 16, and I remember thinking, this isn't a fight, this is final. If you've ever been told you don't belong somewhere you once called home, I want you to stay with me. And if this story feels personal at any point, like it hits somewhere you don't talk about, you can like, subscribe, or tell me where you're listening from. Only if it feels real to you. I read every comment. My name is Alara Bennett. I'm 26 now, and for 10 years I told people my parents were complicated. That's the word you use when the truth feels too sharp. But complicated isn't the right word. Controlled is closer. I grew up in a small town outside Denver. My father ran a hardware store that had been in his family for 3 generations. My mother taught piano lessons out of our living room. We weren't wealthy, we weren't struggling, we were precise. Dinner at 6, church on Sunday, no locked bedroom doors, no raised voices in public. My father believed discipline built character. My mother believed obedience built safety. I believed them. Until I was 13. That was the year I got into the Science Magnet program downtown. It meant a longer bus ride, new friends, different ideas. I loved it. The first time I brought home an A- in chemistry, my father stared at it for a long time. "What happened to the plus?" he asked. It wasn't cruel, it was curious, but something in me shrank. At 14, I cut my hair to my shoulders. My mother cried. Not loudly, just at the sink while washing dishes. "You used to look so soft," she said. Soft. At 15, I told them I wanted to study biomedical engineering, out of state. That was the first real fight. "You don't leave family," my father said. "I'm not leaving, I'm growing." He laughed. Not amused, not proud, dismissive. And that's when the distance began. It wasn't explosive, it was gradual. Conversations shortened, smiles thinned, rules tightened. My phone had to stay in the kitchen at night. My curfew moved earlier. My mother started checking my backpack. I thought it was about control. It wasn't. It was about fear. I just didn't understand that yet. The night everything broke, I was 16 years and 3 months old. I had stayed late at school for a robotics competition. My team won second place. I held the certificate in my hands all the way home, rehearsing how I'd tell them. They were waiting in the living room when I walked in. Both of them. My backpack slid off my shoulder. "Where were you?" my father asked. I explained. I showed him the certificate. He didn't look at it. "You lied," my mother said quietly. I hadn't, but someone had called the house. A neighbor had seen me getting into a car after school, a boy's car. His name was Mason. He was on my team. He drove 3 of us to the competition because the bus was late. That was the truth. But truth didn't matter anymore. "You embarrassed this family," my father said. Embarrassed. Like I'd committed something irreversible. I tried to explain. I remember my hands shaking. I remember saying, "You can call the school. You can ask." But my father wasn't listening. He was building something in his head. A narrative. And in his narrative, I was slipping. "You think you're smarter than us," he said. "No. You think you don't need us." "That's not true." Silence. Then the sentence that split my life in 2. "If you want to live like you don't belong here, then you don't." My mother didn't stop him. She didn't defend me. She stood up, walked to the hallway closet,
took down my old duffel bag. That's when I understood. This wasn't punishment. This was removal. I packed in 15 minutes. 2 jeans, 3 shirts, my science textbook, the robotics certificate. I left my childhood trophies on the shelf. My father walked me to the driveway. It was raining by then. You'll learn. That's all. No hug, no shaking voice, just certainty. I stood there for a long moment after they closed the door, waiting for it to open again. It didn't. I slept on Mason's sister's couch that night, and the next morning I called my aunt in Colorado Springs. She picked up on the second ring. "I need help," I said. There was a pause. Then, "Where are you?" That question saved me. I moved in with my aunt 2 days later, and I told myself something very simple. They'll calm down. They'll call. They didn't. Weeks turned into months. Birthdays passed. No messages. At 17, I filed for legal emancipation with my aunt's help. My parents didn't contest it. That hurt more than anything. Not fighting. Not even trying. I graduated high school with honors. They didn't attend. I got into Stanford on a full scholarship. They didn't respond to the letter I sent them. By 19, I stopped checking my phone at night. By 21, I stopped saying their names in conversation. By 23, I built something solid. And by 26, I thought I was untouchable, until the day my assistant walked into my office and said, "There's a couple here asking for you. They say they're your parents."
For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. My assistant, Claire, stood in the doorway holding her tablet against her chest like a shield. "There's a couple here asking for you," she repeated. "They say they're your parents." The word felt foreign. Parents. I hadn't said it out loud in years. I was standing behind the glass wall of my office on the 7th floor of the research building I'd helped design. My name was etched beside the door. Dr. Alara Bennett, Director of Biomedical Innovation. I'd worked 10 years for that plaque. 10 years of internships, fellowships, sleepless residencies, conference rooms where I was the youngest woman at the table. And now they were downstairs. I swallowed. Did they say what they want? Claire hesitated. "They look upset." Upset? That was new. My parents didn't do upset. They did composed, controlled, certain. "Tell them I'm in a meeting," I said automatically. Claire nodded, but she didn't leave. "They've been here for almost an hour." An hour. That meant they weren't leaving. Something inside my chest shifted. Not panic, something older. A reflex from 16. The instinct to brace. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll come down." The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. My reflection in the stainless steel doors looked calm. Navy blazer, hair tied back, no tremor in my jaw. I'd imagined this moment before. In those first few years, I used to picture them showing up at graduation, at 21, at 25, apologizing, crying, admitting they were wrong. But imagination is softer than reality. The lobby doors slid open, and there they were. 10 years had changed them. My father's shoulders were narrower, his hair thinner, gray at the temples. My mother looked smaller somehow, her posture slightly curved. They didn't belong here, or maybe I didn't belong there anymore. My father stood first when he saw me. "Alara." My name sounded unfamiliar in his voice. I didn't move closer. I didn't hug them. "Yes." My mother's eyes filled immediately. That surprised me. She used to cry quietly at sinks, not in public. "You look," she started, then stopped. "You look well." "I am." Silence stretched between us, heavy and awkward. People moved around the lobby, swiping badges, carrying coffee, living their lives. My life. "We need to talk," my father said. The same tone he'd used the night he told me I didn't belong, except this time there was no certainty behind it.
"What is this about?" I asked. They exchanged a look, a flicker, communication without words. My father cleared his throat. "The store isn't doing well." I blinked. "The hardware store. The legacy. The last few years have been hard," my mother added. "Online competition, supply chain issues." I listened, detached. "That's unfortunate," I said carefully. My father's jaw tightened, not in anger, in restraint. "We're at risk of losing it," he said. And there it was, the real reason. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "And you came here because—" He hesitated. That was new too. "We heard about your company," he said. "The grant you secured, the partnerships." Of course they had. Small towns talk. Success travels faster than apologies. "You heard I was successful," I corrected. My mother flinched at the word. "We're proud of you," she whispered. The sentence landed awkwardly, like it hadn't been practiced enough. I studied them both. 10 years ago, they'd been immovable, solid walls. Now they looked weathered. "We were hoping," he began, choosing each word carefully, "that you might consider helping, an investment, a loan, something to keep the store in the family." In the family. The phrase echoed in my mind. "You removed me from that family," I said quietly. My father's face tightened. That was different. Different. The rain, the duffel bag, the closed door. Different. "How?" I asked. My mother stepped forward slightly. "We were scared, Alara. You were pulling away, talking about leaving, about out-of-state schools, about not needing us. I was 16. You were defiant." I let that sit. "I was ambitious." The lobby felt smaller. "We thought," he said slowly, "that if we were firm, you'd come back, apologize, realize you needed structure." I stared at him. "You thought throwing me out would make me obedient." He didn't deny it. My mother's tears spilled over. "We didn't think you'd actually leave." I almost laughed. "You packed my bag." She covered her mouth. My father's voice lowered. "We miscalculated." Miscalculated. Like I'd been a business risk, a bad investment. I felt the old humiliation rise in my throat, the one from chemistry grades and haircuts and robotics competitions. But it didn't drown me this time. It steadied me. "You didn't call for 10 years. We thought you'd come back when you were ready." I was a child. Silence again. People were starting to glance over. My father shifted his weight. "The store is all we have." And there it was. Not me. The store. The legacy. The reputation. All we have. I looked at the etched letters on the glass wall above the lobby. Dr. Alara Bennett. This was what I had built. Alone. "You didn't come because you missed me." My mother shook her head quickly. "That's not true." "Then why now?" Neither of them answered immediately. And in that pause, I understood something I hadn't at 16. They weren't villains. They were afraid. Afraid of losing control, afraid of losing legacy, afraid of irrelevance. And now they were afraid of losing the store. My father finally said it. "We need your help." Not "we want you back." Not "we're sorry." "We need." I took a slow breath. For the first time in 10 years, they were asking instead of declaring. But what they were asking for wasn't forgiveness. It was money. And something inside me knew the conversation wasn't over. Not even close.
I didn't answer them right away. I asked Claire to reschedule my afternoon meetings, then led my parents upstairs to a small conference room with glass walls and a long oak table. Neutral ground. Not my office, not theirs. They sat side by side, close but not touching. I remained standing for a moment longer than necessary, reviewing them the way I would review a proposal. 10 years ago, I would have folded first. Now I waited. My father cleared his throat. "We brought documents." Of course they did. He slid a manila folder across the table. Projected losses, debt summaries, inventory reports. He had always believed paper made things legitimate. I skimmed the numbers. They weren't catastrophic, but they were bleeding slowly. "You expanded 3 years ago," I said. He nodded. "We thought growth would help. It increased overhead." He looked at me carefully, measuring. "You understand this better than we do." There it was again. Not pride, utility. "I understand risk," I replied. My mother leaned forward. "We didn't come just for money." I raised an eyebrow. She swallowed. We want to fix things." I met her gaze. "You had 10 years. We didn't know how to start." I almost said, "Neither did I." But that wasn't true. I knew exactly how to start. With, "I'm sorry." No conditions, no business attached. "You never tried," I said quietly. My father stiffened. "You left." "I told you to." "We expected you to cool down." I stared at him. "I was 16. You expected me to fight my way back into a house that threw me out?" Silence. He didn't have a strategy for that. My mother's voice trembled. "We thought you'd come home for holidays." I wasn't invited. She blinked. The realization looked genuine. "We assumed. You assumed I knew I was welcome after you said I wasn't family if I left." My father flinched. The exact sentence. I remembered it word for word. "If you walk out that door, don't expect to walk back in." I had memorized it. It kept me warm in dorm rooms, fueled scholarship essays, powered sleepless nights. And now it sat between us like evidence. "I was angry," he said. So was I. He looked down at his hands. They were rougher now, skin thin. Age had softened him, or maybe fear had. My mother wiped her eyes. "When your aunt let you stay with her, we thought she'd send you back eventually." She didn't. "No." "And you never asked her to." She looked ashamed. I realized something uncomfortable then. They hadn't checked on me because checking meant admitting they were wrong. Pride had been cheaper than parenting. The air in the room felt tight. I closed the folder. "Let's separate 2 things," I said calmly. "Your store and our relationship." My father straightened slightly, relieved by structure. "The store is a business decision. I don't invest emotionally." He nodded cautiously. "As for us," I continued, "that's something else entirely." My mother whispered my name. I ignored it. "If I invest," I said calmly, "it will be on terms, professional terms." My father's jaw tightened reflexively. "I won't take over, but I will require transparency, operational changes, modernization, online expansion." "You'd control it," he said carefully. "I'd stabilize it." He didn't like that. Control had always been his language. "And if we don't agree," he asked, "then I don't invest." Simple. Clean. For the first time in my life, I wasn't negotiating from fear. I was negotiating from strength. My mother looked between us. "Ilara, this isn't just business." "It is, because you made it that way." They both went still. "You showed up when you needed something, not when I graduated, not when I earned my doctorate, not when my research was published." My father blinked. "You were published." I let the silence answer him. There it was again. They didn't know my life. Not because I hid it, because they never asked. My mother's shoulders sagged. "We thought you hated us." I inhaled slowly. "I was hurt," I corrected. "There's a difference. Hate burns loud. Hurt goes quiet. And I had been quiet for a decade. I built a life without you," I said softly. "That wasn't easy." My father nodded once. A small, stiff acknowledgement. "I see that." It wasn't an apology.
but it was closer than I'd ever gotten. The room felt different now, less combative, more exposed. "What would it take," my mother asked, "for us to try again?" The question surprised me. It sounded fragile. I didn't answer immediately, because this part mattered more than the investment. "I don't need you to be proud of me," I said finally. "I needed you to believe in me when I was 16. My father's eyes flickered. "We didn't understand you. You didn't try." He absorbed that. "And now?" he asked. "Now," I said carefully, "I need honesty, not pride, not reputation, not legacy." They listened. "If you want a relationship, it starts separate from the store. Therapy, conversations, accountability." My father stiffened at the word therapy. Predictable. "This isn't about blame. It's about understanding what happened." "And if we can't?" he asked. "Then we remain civil strangers." The phrase landed heavy. Civil strangers. 10 years summarized. My mother reached across the table slowly. I didn't pull away. Not yet. "We were wrong," she whispered. The words were thin, but they were there. My father closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. "We were wrong," he echoed. It wasn't dramatic, no tears from him, just two menacing words surrendered quietly. And something inside me shifted. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the first crack in a wall I'd built carefully for survival. The store was still bleeding, the numbers still complicated, but the real negotiation had just begun.
I didn't expect the word wrong to hit me the way it did. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cinematic. My father didn't break down. My mother didn't collapse into my arms. They just said it. And for a moment, the room felt quieter. But quiet doesn't mean healed. I folded my hands on the table. Acknowledging that isn't the same as repairing it. My father nodded once. "We know." "Do you?" That's what I wanted to ask. Instead, I slid the folder back toward him. "If I invest," I said, "it won't be charity. It'll be structured, limited equity, conditional oversight." He frowned slightly. "Equity?" "Yes, if I put capital into the store, I own part of it." His jaw tightened instinctively. Ownership had always been sacred to him. "I built that store," he said. "And I built this company," I replied evenly. He looked around the glass room as if seeing it clearly for the first time. The framed research awards on the wall, the skyline outside, the team members walking past in lab coats and badges. He exhaled slowly. "You really did." It wasn't envy. It was something closer to recognition. My mother watched us both like she was afraid the ground would split open again. "I don't want control," I added. "I want sustainability. If you want help, you accept that things will change." My father stared at the numbers again. Change. That word had always threatened him. The world moving forward had felt like betrayal, and I had been the first sign of it. "You always wanted more than that town," he said quietly. "Yes." And that felt like rejection. I paused. "I wasn't rejecting you. I was rejecting limitation." He absorbed that slowly. The tension in his shoulders eased, just slightly. My mother reached for his hand. He let her. That was new. "We thought keeping you close meant protecting you." It felt like trapping. She nodded faintly, tears brimming again. The conference room door buzzed softly, Claire checking to see if I needed anything. I ignored it. This was the first honest conversation we'd had in a decade. I wasn't rushing it. My father leaned back in his chair. "If we agree to your terms," he said carefully, "what happens to us?" The question surprised me. He wasn't asking about ownership. He was asking about relationship. I didn't answer right away, because this was the part I'd rehearsed in my head for years. "I won't pretend nothing happened," I said finally. He nodded. "I won't show up for holidays like the last 10 years didn't exist." My mother swallowed.
I won't take responsibility for fixing what you broke. The words were calm, but they were firm. What I will do, I continued, is start small. Coffee, calls, therapy if you're willing. My father flinched again at therapy. Why is that necessary? He asked. Because we don't just need apologies, I said. We need understanding. He didn't argue. He just looked tired, older than I remembered. You built a life without us, he said quietly. Yes. Does that life have room for us? There it was, the real fear. Not money, replacement. I thought about that carefully, about the nights I studied alone, the mentors who filled gaps they never knew existed, the quiet humiliation of writing no contact on emergency forms. I had built independence brick by brick. Inviting them back in felt dangerous, but holding on to anger felt heavier now. There might be room, I said slowly, but not the same room you left. They both listened closely. I'm not 16 anymore, I continued. You don't get authority, you get access, and access depends on consistency. My father absorbed that like a contract clause. And the store? He asked. I'll send you a proposal, I said. You review it, no pressure. If you don't agree, we part respectfully. He nodded. No protest, no ego, just a tired man staring at the cost of pride. My mother finally stood. Can I? She hesitated. Can I hug you? The question alone changed something. She had never asked. She had always taken. I stood slowly. When she wrapped her arms around me, it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't desperate. It was tentative, like she was afraid I might disappear again. I didn't hug her tightly, but I didn't stay stiff either. My father stood awkwardly beside us. When we separated, he looked unsure. I stepped forward. He smelled like sawdust and aftershave, familiar, older. His arms came around me slowly, not possessive, not commanding, just careful. When he stepped back, his eyes were damp. He didn't wipe them. I shouldn't have let you walk out that door, he said. And there it was, the sentence I had waited 10 years to hear. Not dramatic, not shouted, just spoken. I nodded once. I shouldn't have had to. He accepted that. They gathered their folder. We walked back to the elevator together. The lobby felt different now, not like a battlefield, more like neutral territory. When the doors opened, my father paused. We don't expect you to fix everything, he said. That's good, I replied, because I won't. The doors began to close. My mother looked at me one last time. We're proud of you, she said again. This time, it didn't feel like utility. It felt smaller, more honest. When they disappeared, I stood in the lobby alone. My chest felt lighter, not healed, but lighter. And I realized something quietly powerful. They didn't come to reclaim me. They came because they needed me, but they left understanding something else. I didn't need them, and that changed everything.
The proposal took me 3 days. Not because the numbers were complicated, because my emotions were. I structured it the way I structure everything, carefully, clearly, with boundaries written into every clause. Minority equity stake, mandatory financial transparency, operational restructuring, quarterly oversight meetings, and one non-negotiable condition. If at any point communication broke down, I walked. No guilt, no leverage, no emotional manipulation tied to capital. I emailed it without commentary, just review and let me know. They replied the next morning. We agree. No pushback, no counter, just agreement. That unsettled me more than resistance would have. 2 weeks later, I drove back to the town I hadn't lived in since I was 16. The hardware store looked smaller, the red paint more faded. The bell above the door still chimed the same way. My father was behind the counter. He looked up. For a second, I saw the old version of him, the man who used to measure me with quiet disapproval. Then it softened. He walked around the counter. You came. I said I would. We shook hands first. That felt right. My mother emerged from the back office, wiping her hands on a cloth. She hugged me again. Still careful, still tentative. The paperwork took an hour. Signatures, witnesses, copies. My name now printed beside theirs on the ownership documents. A shared stake. Not inheritance, not obligation. Choice. When it was done, my father leaned against the counter. "You really don't need this place," he said. "No," I agreed. "Why help us?" I looked around the store. The smell of metal and wood and oil, the same shelves I stocked at 13, the same register I learned math behind. "Because I don't want regret to be the last thing between us," I said honestly. He nodded slowly. That answer seemed to land somewhere deeper than business. The first therapy session was awkward. 3 chairs, neutral office, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and zero patience for deflection. My father hated it, I could tell, but he stayed. When she asked why they'd disowned me, he said something I didn't expect. I thought losing her would scare her back. The therapist tilted her head, and when it didn't, I thought admitting I was wrong would make it worse. There it was, pride disguised as strategy. My mother admitted she followed his lead. "I didn't know how to contradict him," she said quietly. I looked at her differently then. For years, I'd seen her as complicit. I hadn't seen the fear. The therapist asked me what I'd needed at 16. Someone to believe that wanting more wasn't betrayal, I said. Silence followed that. Heavy. Real. No applause, no dramatic music, just 3 people sitting in the truth. The store slowly stabilized. We modernized inventory, launched online sales, expanded into contractor partnerships. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. I didn't micromanage, I didn't dominate, I offered structure. They adapted, slowly, awkwardly, but genuinely. 6 months later, my father called me on a Tuesday afternoon. Not about numbers, not about inventory, just to ask how my week was. The conversation caught me off guard. "It's busy." "Good busy?" "Yes." "That's good." The conversation lasted 4 minutes. It felt monumental, because it wasn't transactional, it was simple. The first Christmas I went back felt strange. The house looked the same, but the dynamic didn't. No comments about my career being ambitious, no subtle digs about leaving, just dinner, stories, small laughter. At one point, my father handed me a wrapped box. Inside was my old robotics medal, the one he used to dismiss as a distraction. "He found it in the garage," he said. "Figured it belonged to you." It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement, and that mattered. 10 years ago, they closed the door on a 16-year-old girl with a duffel bag. Last month, they stood at my office door asking for help. Not demanding, asking. That difference changed everything. People love revenge stories, triumphant speeches, public humiliation. This wasn't that. There was no dramatic downfall, no courtroom scene, no standing ovation. Just 3 flawed people choosing to try again. Slowly. Imperfectly. Some days it's still awkward. Some sessions still sting. But the boundary is clear now. I don't shrink. I don't seek permission. I don't confuse love with control. And they don't confuse authority with respect. The biggest shift wasn't financial. It was psychological. They don't own me. They never did. And I don't need their approval to exist. I chose to invest, not because they begged, not because they're my parents, but because I was strong enough to choose from stability, not from need. That's the difference. If this story felt personal to you, tell me what boundary you had to set. Thank you for listening.